This is the Louie T Network.
Let's try that again. Who else could it be? Me, me, Louie T. Welcome to lockdown coverage, week number 12 in the National Football League. Carolina Panthers on the road taking on the New York Jets. Both teams coming off of a week 11 bye. So this was an intriguing game. Panthers looking to go into a huge showdown with the Saints for first place in the NFC South next week. Can't overlook the Jets on the road, however, before you get to that big showdown in the division. For the Jets, I was really disappointed in how they went into the bye week, losing to the Buccaneers in a lowly game in a nasty rain-soaked Raymond James Stadium. A great opportunity to get to 500 before the bye week. Put yourself in a position in a very raggedy AFC conference where that sixth and final playoff berth, that final wild card is wide open, and you may be able to get in with a subpar 500 record. Just winning against a team like the Bucs, who were struggling at the time with no Jameis Winston, that was a game you needed to get. You didn't get it, and so really disappointed. But here's an opportunity to make amends for that off the bye against a Panthers team coming in, playing good football, get a chance to get back into the swing of things in the AFC wildcard picture and continue this just incredible season again. No one gave the Jets a chance to be in a position to be even having a wild card discussion this late into the season. Granted, now they're 4-7 with this loss. Still a hell of a coaching job by Todd Bowles. This is a very, very solid football team that I think has overachieved this season, even though they've got more talent than we gave them credit for. This game looked eerily similar to the one that they lost to the Atlanta Falcons, a team in this same division with the Panthers in the NFC South. Similar kind of game. You're there, you have a chance, you don't make the plays down the stretch. And the fourth quarter has been a nightmare for this Jets football team. They've got one of the biggest point differentials in the fourth quarter. You saw that rear its ugly head yet again. Mistakes, a McCown fumble, a punt return given up for a touchdown, a boneheaded pass, roughing the passer penalty by Mike Pennell or Pennell, however you want to pronounce it. It doomed you in this game. We'll talk about the Jets here in a second, but I want to talk about the Panthers and what they were able to accomplish in this game. And for those of you who haven't already done so, subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content in 2017 and beyond. We're changing the game. I want you to help us do that by simply hitting that subscribe button and becoming a member of the Louie T Network. And also, if you haven't already done so, there are a number of different ways that you can stay in contact with this channel via Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Make sure you turn on those notifications. All of those links down in the description, as well as how you can donate to this channel. Those are your two options, Patreon or PayPal. Those two links that you see before you right now, also down in the description, as well as the link to a video that will describe what you will get via Patreon if you were to donate. So with that being said, Panthers get the win and go to 8-3 on the season with a 35-27 win on the road versus the Jets. It was not pretty. As a matter of fact, it's games like this. Every time I want to believe and buy into this Panthers team, it's games like this that scare me half to death because I already don't believe in this Panthers offense. I told you that. I've said it many a times. Even though I love when Cam Newton runs, it makes this team. And I actually, it's a love-hate relationship with Cam Newton running the football because on one hand, while I love it and I understand that it is a necessary evil for this team to be successful, I hate the fact that he has to put his body on the line every single time because this team can't function without him running the football. I'd love to see him just drop back and throw it. But then it's games like this that remind me, the reason he can't drop back and throw it is because of games like this. He was awful in this football game throwing the ball. He was absolutely putrid and horrid All right? And it's games like this that scare the bejesus out of me because I look at the rest of the teams in that division. I told you a long time ago. As a matter of fact, the week you beat Atlanta, I said, I still believe in the Falcons because I think they've got strong defensive talent and their offense has yet to explode. They're starting to come on strong. I look at the Saints. They've already beaten you in Carolina. Now you got to go to New Orleans next week. I believe in their offense. Their defense still leaves a little bit to be desired, but I believe in that New Orleans Saints football team because they're growing. I look at this Panthers football team, and I look at them and I say, I think you've maxed out what you have offensively, talent-wise. And look, I wasn't a fan of the trade of Kelvin Benjamin. I know a lot of Panthers fans have come out in support of the trade. I don't have a problem with the trade. I didn't love the trade. I still don't because I still think you're lacking at the skill positions. It's essentially now with Grego going down again. We'll mention that a little bit later on. But it's all Devin Funchess, and then you just got a bunch of guys out there, a bunch of warm bodies out there for Cam Newton. It's a shame because there's nothing, and I mean nothing out there other than McCaffrey and then Funchess. And then there's just a bunch of warm bodies. And it's going to get worse when you play. And the Jets are a quality defensive football team. And so I expected them to struggle a little bit today, and they did for obvious reasons. It's not going to get any easier when you play against good defensive teams with the lack of talent that you have on offense. That's a scary proposition. And when Cam can't run, and he really didn't have a lot of room to run because this was an athletic Jets defense that chased him around all day long, you're not going to have a lot. When Cam's not running for 75 yards, when it's 7 or it's 8 for 27 like it was today or whatever it wasn't a ton, I tell you that much. This offense is going to struggle. And this offense did struggle for the majority of this football game. A lot of mistakes by the Jets aided and abetted this Panthers football team in this game. There were a couple of chunk plays that really helped the Panthers out. There's a big Kalen Clay reverse run. There's a big run by McCaffrey in this game, but a couple of big catches by Funchess. But for the most part, it's a quiet offensive day for the Panthers. You look up at the scoreboard, you see 35 points, and say, quiet? You sure? Yeah, I'm positive. There was also a punt return for a touchdown and a scoop and score fumble from Luke Kuechly in this game to account for 14 of the 35 Panther points in this game. So, yes, this was a very quiet offensive day by this Panthers football team. And again, they were helped out by the Jets in this game. But I want people to stop saying that this is a dominant Panthers defense. It is not dominant. I've watched this defense all season long. I watched a Dolphins team that couldn't score against anybody. They ran off a 68-yard touchdown run. They scored some points. I thought Cutler and that offense moved the football at times in that game, but they just imploded throughout the course of that game. You can move the football in this Panthers defense. The secondary is still suspect. They to me have never fully recovered from Josh Norman no longer being there. You can throw against those corners, especially in the slot. The safeties are both older guys. Neither one of them great in coverage. I like Mike Adams. I actually do, and he actually got injured in this game. I think he did come back, but doesn't matter. You know how I feel about Kurt Coleman. That's a very suspect Panthers secondary that can be thrown on. I think it's a lot tougher to run. They do get a little bit of pressure on the quarterback, but when they don't, and there were times in this game where they got no pressure, Josh McCown was able to eat him alive. Robbie Anderson, over 100 yards receiving. He's a special receiver. I've already talked about him on my show, The List. And so if you haven't had a chance, check that out. But I talked about Robbie Anderson being underrated in this league. I've talked about, and that was on the list, the underrated list that I gave you guys. I also talked about Jermaine Kearse being underrated on that same list, along with Robbie Anderson, as a couple of teammates that I thought just don't get enough credit in this league. Both of those guys went over 100 yards in this game on this vaunted Panthers defense. Don't talk to me about this Panthers defense being elite. There's nothing elite about this Panthers team, and that's what scares me, is that they don't scare me on offense. They don't scare you on defense. Their special teams, I actually like Graham Gano and think he's having a really good bounce back year after struggling last year. And I think Kalen Clay does actually add something on special teams. I thought the Buccaneers were remiss for letting him walk in Tampa, and I think that's going to be something that may actually help. You saw the punt return today. I think he's got some juice on special teams. So they may have something on special teams, but I don't look at this Panthers offense nor defense and think, man, they're dominant on either side of the football there. This is a team that I really look at and I say, if there's one team that still has a chance to fall out of the playoffs in that division, if all three of those teams aren't going to go, and you ask me which one of these teams isn't going to make it, I'm still going with the Panthers because I don't believe in one side of the football over the other for this football team. At least with the Saints, I say, look, that offense is dominant. And I said that defense is coming along. With the Falcons, I think, and I've said this before, people look at me crazy when I said it, and I'm going to continue to say it, they're better this year than they were last year. Talent-wise, cohesiveness, they're better. They just have a coaching situation that isn't as cohesive as it was last year. But make no mistake about it, they are definitely better as a football team in my mind, and they're starting to hit their stride, and so they're a dangerous team. I take either one of those teams over this Panthers team. We're going to find out over the last month and a half of the season about the Panthers and the rest of that division for that matter, because they've got to play each other. They got to play Atlanta in Atlanta. They've got to play New Orleans in New Orleans. We're going to find out just how good this Panthers football team is. This was not an impressive victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. You'll take it and you'll run with it, but make no mistake about it, they were not perfect in this game, and a lot of Jet mistakes allowed them to come away with this 35-27 victory. Cam Newton was awful in this game. The run game was it was hit or miss on the ground. You lose Greg Olsen. Let's talk about that quickly before we transition to the Jets. That's another huge loss. And Greg Olsen, you better look out. They've won some games without you this year. They may trade you away like they did Kelvin Benjamin. They may feel like they're better off without you than with you. Better look out. You're injured again. They may decide to trade you. I'm just warning you. Look out, Grego. They won some games. They might decide they don't need you anymore. So he hurt the same foot that he just came. This was his first game back since breaking his foot in week 2. And he re-aggravated it. I don't know to what extent, but this could be the end of his season. And if it is, what a shame, because they could definitely use him. I just told you they don't have anything outside of Funches and McCaffrey in this offense. It is a very bland and lack of talented offense. It's a deficiency at the skill positions for this Panthers offense. It was going to be a sight for sore eyes to see Greg O come back and to see him go down in this game. It's really disheartening for a Panthers offense that could have sure used a pick-me-up at the tight end position. Nonetheless, we'll see what this Panthers offense, because, and this is the thing, one week this Panthers offense will look like straight trash, pretty much like it did this week. And then next week they'll come out, score 35 points again, and it'll actually be a legit 35. And you'll be like, wow, that's a scary team. Sort of like what they did against the Miami Dolphins on Monday Night Football. We're like, man, that's a scary Panthers football team right there. They're not. You don't play the Dolphins nor the Jets again this season. The rest of your schedule is going to get tougher. And if you make it to the playoffs, which right now you're in a great position to do, and I think the Saints are going to lose to the Rams today, so you're going to have a share of first place. And next week is going to be for first place. And if the Rams take care of business and you go into that game, both teams at 8-3, it's a monster game in the NFC South. Either way, it's going to be a huge game. But if both teams are 8-3 at the time of that game, that's going to be a colossal matchup in the NFC South. The defense made some stops down the stretch. I did not agree with the personal foul, roughing the passer penalty at the end, even though he could have pulled up. And the referee, it was crazy because he stared at the official stared at him, and it's almost like the official said, "Oh, you staring at me? Flag." I mean, it was, to me, I didn't like the call. The game was in the balance. Let the teams on the field decide the game, not a bogus personal foul penalty there. But in any event, the defense did what they had to do late in the game, getting a couple of stops. And the offense gives them some credit. But the possession before, they were able to eat some of the clock up. They did ultimately have to punt, but they ate some of the clock up. And then they turned around, and then they got it back again. And then the personal foul penalty pretty much sealed the fate of the Jets in this game. But there was a nice bootleg by Newton out to the flats. I want to say it was Ed Dixon for a huge gain that really put the Jets in a bad spot, making them have to call all of their timeouts. So good execution there down the stretch by this Panthers football team as they get it done 35-27 to run their record to 8-3 and set up a huge matchup in the NFC South next week with the New Orleans Saints. Jets, this is why you're not going to make the postseason. This is why a lot of people expect you to be one of the worst teams in the league. And despite all of the mistakes you were in this ball game, and this is the story of the Jets this season. They're one of the most penalized teams in the league. Had one of the most inopportune penalties of the game, the Mike Pennell roughing the passer penalty. You couldn't have come in a worse time. You're going to get off the field on a third down. The Panthers inexplicably throw the football in that situation. Well, not inexplicably. They were looking to try to win the game there. I can't blame them for that. But it's incomplete. They're going to stop the clock for you. You're going to have a timeout left. You're going to have the 2-minute warning in your back pocket as well. Everything that you could have asked for is right there in front of you, and you blow it by roughing the passer. And so I thought that you did some great things. McCown was outstanding. And then every time you start jumping on the Josh McCown train, he does something to remind you that he's, well, Josh McCown. And that fumble is as egregious as it gets. What the hell are you doing? You're in the grasp of a Panthers player and you're trying to get rid of the football. Why? That's the separation between the greats in this league, the good players in this league, and the guys that have been mediocre throughout their career. McCown's having a career year this year in his 29th season in the National Football League. And I looked at some of his numbers and I was astounded at what was a career high for him. He's in year 18. I think he got what him and J. Pep, they said, came in the 2002 NFL draft. We're now in the going into 2018. So you're talking about 16 years of football, and your career high for passing touchdowns is 16 coming into this year. I mean, that's astounding. And he's already passed that this year, and he threw 3 more in this game, so he's at 20. So he's already set a career high. He's going to pass his previous career high in passing yards this year, probably in the next couple of weeks, with about 4 games to spare. So he's on a torrid pace to shatter all of his own personal bests. And it still plays like that fumble where you go, Josh McCown, you bump. And despite having a tremendous game, and they didn't lose this game because of him, but you can't make that decision to try to throw the football there. That was Eli Manning-esque. That was Jamarcus Russell, all of the bum quarterbacks that we've seen come and pass through this league at some point. That's something that you expect a dodo quarterback to do. You can't make that mistake. And Josh McCown has done these types of things throughout the course of his career, left-handed interceptions, you name it, he's done it. And that fumble, inexplicable, inexcusable. You can't do that, especially at that juncture of the game. You're up, okay, and you make that mistake. You're up at that time 20-18, 20-17, something along those lines. You can't do that at that time. You can't do that. He makes that mistake. It costs his team. Then, and that, like I said, this is one of the worst fourth-quarter teams. You piggyback off of that mistake, you punt, and you give up a punt return for a touchdown. It's what the Jets have done in the fourth quarter of games this year to see themselves fall to 4-7. 2 golden opportunities against NFC South teams, and you blow both of them on the road versus Tampa, at home versus the Panthers. And this is a disheartening loss for a team that, look, you shouldn't go to the playoffs because you're not good enough. But you were in this ball game, and you had every opportunity. Austin Seferian-Jenkins with 2 drops in the end, well, 1 drop in the end zone. Look, that's when I knew you weren't going to win this game. You got to catch that football on the opening possession. Beautiful opening possession. You move it right down the field. He's wide open. Great throw by McCown. I thought he put his hands the wrong way. He tried to catch it like this. I'd have loved to have seen him catch it like this so that he could have protected the football. In any event, catch the goddamn ball. He dropped it, and then he had a touchdown later in the game overturned by replay, and I thought it was a right call. He did not possess that. That's the exact way that they look at those plays. That football moved as he hit the ground and slid out of bounds. It was not a touchdown, and I knew it from the time they ruled it initially a touchdown. I said, that's not a touchdown. They're going to overturn that, and they did, and it was the right play. But how about the Jets throwing it 3 straight times from the 1 and not trying to run it not a single time with both Powell and Forte healthy? No excuses for that. You deserve to have to settle for a field goal. You threw this game away. The Panthers didn't take this game from you. You gave it to them with the personal foul penalty, the 2 touchdowns that weren't, 3 straight times throwing it from the 1-yard line, the punt return you gave up, the fumble. You gave this game away. You didn't want to win. You're 4-7 for a reason, and you proved it yet again in this game, dropping to the Panthers 35-27. And just about all hopes for the postseason for this Jets team dashed with this loss as you now drop to 4-7. You're not dead because the AFC 6th seed is a joke, but you're not alive and well the way that you could have been had you found a way to win this game. But nonetheless, Panthers get the win. It didn't have to be pretty, just a gritty and a dub. They get that done, and they go to 8-3 on the season. We'll check to see if there are any comments, and we'll get out of here quickly. Let's see. Matthew123 says, what do you think about the TD call? If you're referring to the ASJ overturn, it was the right call. That was not a touchdown. The ball moved, and they ruled that correctly. So, let's see. Robin Sanders says, as a Redskins fan, should we be rooting for the Saints? You should be rooting for the Saints to win against the Rams, but at this point, it doesn't matter. The Redskins, this isn't a Redskins show, but Redskins had every opportunity to put themselves in a much better position than what they are in right now. And so I'm not rooting for anybody. It is what it is. If we find a way to have a chance at the end of the season, great. If we don't, we did it to ourselves. I'm not in the position of rooting for this team or that team because we should have taken care of business. That's the way I feel. Rodney Ray says, you took a little hiatus. It was just for the holidays, right? Everything straight on your end. It was a bye week. Again, this is why you guys have to stay in tune to my vast majority of social media outlets, strictly Twitter and Instagram. If you would have been in tune to either one of those, you would have known I was on a week 12 bye week. But yes, I take a week 12 bye every year. It doesn't change. Thanksgiving week is always week 12. I always take a bye week. And I'm off, and I did that again this week. Archangel says, I hope the Saints and the Panthers both lose to each other next week. That's not going to happen, but I feel you. Michael Thompson says, Panthers are the worst 8-3 team. I'm not going there. They're 8-3. I'm not going to kill them for being 8-3, okay? They're not the most aesthetically pleasing, no, but they're 8-3. There's no denying that. And if they were in the AFC, they'd be vying for the #1 seed right now. So I'm not going to kill them. Dominic Garland says Jets should have won. They could have, should have, would have, but they didn't. And that's why they're 4-7 and the Panthers are 8-3. Reese says, good to see you back. Thanksgiving was great. Glad that you had a great one as well. More lockdown coverage to come. Going to get back to the rest of this Saints-Rams game. And then we'll reconvene for the finish of that. Break that one down. I'll come back again at the halftime of Sunday Night Football. Break down Patriots and Dolphins. And then we'll break down the Sunday night game itself. Packers and Steelers for Sunday Night Football overtime. And then we'll start jumping into lockdown coverage week number 12 in the National Football League. I'm your man, Louie T. Good to be back off the bye. And so, if it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on the Louie T Network. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything in the National Football League. Panthers get it done. Was not pretty by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a dub as they go to 8-3, set up a huge matchup in the NFC South at New Orleans next week. Win or loss for the Saints, doesn't matter. That game's going to be for first place in that division. Bart Scott, can't wait. Jets let another one slip through their fingers. They're now 4-7, and all playoff hopes pretty much dashed with this loss. But still some football left to be played. AFC 6 seed wide open, but this Jets team isn't going anywhere. And so we'll see what happens moving forward. Your man Louie T, signing off. I got more breakdowns to come. Don't you go anywhere. I'm back. See you a little bit later. Enjoy the rest of the football.